Scaling using the native SketchUp scale can sometimes work well, but sometimes, like in the case of this door, it's scaling it in a way that we don't want. It's distorting the trim around this door to make the trim wider than the trim on the top and the bottom. Similarly, in this cabinet here, if I use the scale tool, we're getting trim that's growing in width, and we just kind of want to keep the proportion of this trim, but still grow the scale of this cabinet. So to avoid that, we're going to use an extension called FredoScale that will help us keep the proportion in place while scaling it in depth and height and width. So hop over to the extension warehouse, and we're going to type in FredoScale, all one word, and then search. The top of the list, FredoScale by Fredo6. So we're going to go ahead and install this extension, but it actually requires a few extra steps. So first, do a normal install. Yes, we'd like to install this extension. It's success. And now we need to scroll down. For this to work properly, we actually need to install an extra library from this page called Sketchucation. So I'll click on this requires you to also install library Fredo6. That's going to bump us over to Sketchucation. And to grab this extension, you'll need to just create a free account. I'm already logged in, but you'll see a button down here that'll say, to get this extension, create a free account. Go ahead and do that. Pop back over here to Fredo6 and hit download. And I'm going to save it to my desktop. It's going to be an RBZ file that we'll then need to install in SketchUp. Now that we've downloaded the FredoScale extension and we've downloaded the Fredo6 library, we just have one more step. We need to install that RBZ file in our extension manager. So we click on that icon here at the bottom, this gem, and come down here to install extension. And I'm going to find that lib Fredo6, that RBZ file. You can click open. So we have the FredoScale and we have the library Fredo6. So this library in itself doesn't really do anything other than enable us to use the FredoScale extension. All right, so now once that's installed, we should be able to view it under View, Tool Palettes, Fredo6, FredoScale. And if you're not seeing this listed in your tool palettes, you may need to close out of SketchUp and restart it. So now we have access to this toolbar. These icons all do something a little bit slightly different as far as scaling and distorting the grouper component, but what we're looking for is this middle icon here, this box stretching. So I'll go ahead and click on that and hover over my different groups. I can click on one, and now I'm presented with a few different grips. I've got a grip to grow in width, in depth, and in height. And you can kind of see the grid where it's growing from in the middle of each of these. So right now it's growing from the side. I can click and release to set that back down, right-click and choose from center, and now it will grow from the center. But as I'm scaling it, you may notice that the trim of the door isn't growing in the way that it was with the native SketchUp tool. So that's what we want. We want it to stay proportionate. Again, if I hit spacebar and escape over here, I can now grow this table in scale. I'm going to pre-select it this time and then click on the box stretching icon. I can grow it in height, and I can see that those legs are staying proportionate instead of growing in height only. I can look down in the bottom part of the screen and see that it's growing to about 2 feet. I'll click and release to set it down there. Now it's going to be a lot more apparent on these cabinets over here. As I use that box stretching tool, I can see that my trim is staying proportionate to itself. But what if we have a cabinet that has 2 doors on it, and if we grow it from the middle or from the side there, it's not quite working out the way we'd like it to. So what we can do is we can take this grid here, and I'm going to click and drag it to one side. And now I need a grid on the other side so that it grows from the middle of both of these boxes. So I can right-click again and choose From Center. And I won't see these grids unless I can see Show Hide Divider. So in this case, we're showing the divider. So if you're not seeing these grids, go ahead and right-click and come back to Show Divider. So this is what we should end up with, is 2 grids, one in the middle of this box and one in the middle of this box. If you need to adjust them a bit, go ahead and click and drag on those grids to get them right where you need them to be. And now when I click and scale this, it's scaling it from the middle of each cabinet because that's where the grid lands. So using extensions like the FredoScale instead of the native SketchUp scale is going to help us scale the things we want and not the things we don't.